Verse 184. The Buddhas do not discriminate the world as subject to the chain of origination, but they regard the causation which rules the world as something like the city of the Gandharvas. Sometimes Buddhism, or the teachings of the Buddha, are very much tied in with notions of causation. There's a very fundamental Buddhist teaching, the Four Noble Truths, which is a kind of prescription. The Buddha is sometimes described as the great healer. And it goes according to a particular formula. An illness arises because of certain conditions. If you remove these conditions, then the illness will not arise. So what can be more causal than that? Ignorance arises from certain conditions. Remove the conditions of ignorance, and ignorance will no longer arise, and we'll have enlightenment. This chain of origination refers to the cycle of conditioned co-production, the pratitya samutpada. And this can be summed up in the saying, when this is present, that comes to be. From the arising of this, that arises. When this is absent, this does not come to be. On the cessation of this, that ceases. Now this really only applies to our spiritual practice. It's not causality in the scientific sense. It's not trying to explain the material world. It's only in relation to ignorance and enlightenment. And this is what we're trying to do here in the Sagatikam. Our ignorance is the views that we cling to. It's these views that occlude our enlightenment. And one of these views, a fundamental view, is the existence of an external world, the existence of the ego soul, the individual. So as enlightenment practitioners, that's what we're interested in. So the Buddhas do not discriminate the world as subject to the chain of origination. The Buddhas aren't interested in going back in time to find the beginning of everything. They're only interested in our entrapment in samsara, which can be dissolved in an instant. They regard the causation which rules the world as something like the city of the Gandharvas. So this is the castles in the sky. When you see a mirage, when you see castles in the sky, do you wonder who built them? Do you wonder what kind of material was used? Where did they quarry the stones? How long did it take? Do we ask these questions of a mirage? Certainly not. These are the questions which conventional understanding will ask. Spiritually though, we want to realize that it is just a mirage. And this is how it is for the enlightenment practitioner. The appearance of the world is like a mirage. So we're not interested in where the world came from, how many billions of years of evolution it took, or when God created it, take your pick. We're interested in how we can divest ourselves of the power of this illusion, how we can stop believing in it. How we can come back to a pure sense of being. That's what these verses are about. Now, I wonder, as you hear me saying this, if part of you protests, part of you wants to speak up for the reality of the world. Well, I'm afraid there's absolutely no case for it, any more than there's a case for speaking up for the reality of a dream. There's only one thing that we can say about the world, and that's said in the next verse, verse 185. This world is just a sign indicative of reality. Apart from the sign, nothing is produced, nothing is destroyed. So what all of this tells us is simply that there's something going on. I wonder if you had a sense of this as a child. What's all this about? That's what the world is asking us to inquire into. What is all this about? This was an inquiry I had a sense of as a child, and I was always looking for the answer, always waiting for the answer from parents, teachers, Sunday school teachers, whoever. But we get diverted. The inquiring mind, if you've got one, gets diverted into the traditional avenues of religion or science. They provide answers, but they are answers which can never satisfy. So this world has no more reality than a mirage. We cling on to it. Why do we cling on to it? Is it because of some kind of inner emptiness? The thing is, though, we don't really cling on to it. At some point we die. People around us die. They pop off and leave us to get on with it. That should tell us something. It should at least tell us that we need to learn to let go of it.